All right, welcome back. In this episode, we are going to take our components to the next level. Last time we left things and they weren't quite complete, but we had done enough for that video. And so this time we're going to start where we left off the last time. And we're going to start by taking a look at this data that we left embedded at the very top of every component. Obviously, embedding data inside the component isn't really what you want to do. You want to have that data created outside of the component and use attributes to inject that data into the component. So let's do this incrementally. So the first thing is, this is where we're at right now. We have a number of these different variables. They're all sitting on the top of every single component. We left it last time where we consolidated upon these variables. These are the ones that every single component needed. And obviously every component has its own values for these variables. So the first step is I know our database is going to eventually return me an object. And so I want to convert this to an object right away. And so that's going to be our first step here is I've converted all of that data that's at the top just into an object. I've left it embedded at the top just so we can do incremental steps here. But I've created a new class, and then all of those variables are now properties on top of that class. And then where appropriate, for example, ID used to be question_ID. I changed the name just to simplify it. And in the markup, now we're using our class to access all of those values. And because this change isn't really technically hard, I've already done that grunt work. So we'll see that refactored in just a little bit. The next step is to take this data that's still embedded in every component, and let's get it out of the component. And so let's remove it from the component. So the component class no longer has data embedded at the very top, and it's still accessing the data through our question object. But now you can see at the very bottom, wherever we're going to use this component, we are going to inject that question object into that component. And obviously to inject it in, I first have to create it. So we create it outside, inject it in, and then we use it on the inside. And once again, technically not a challenging change, and I've already made all of those changes. So there are still a few code changes that are left to do, and we need to tackle our conditional questions at this point. So let's get over into our development environment and work that out. First of all, if you look at any one of these, you're going to see no data at the very top. So no matter which one you select, there's no data on any of these components. Close these all up. And if you look at our survey, and if we start at the very top of this survey, now you're going to see I create an instance of a question, and then I feed it in to the component. Now this is getting a little messier in the survey, but we're going to work on that in the next video. But for now, we're pulling all of this data outside of the components, and we're injecting it in using an attribute. So I've done that through all of these questions. You can see that they all have their data now on the outside, and we're using a question attribute to inject it in. So if we scroll on down, we are going to finally end up where we're going to do a little bit of work here in this episode. We have this parent question and we have a child question. And we talked about last time that this parent question is really a select one from a list. So we're really using this select one from a list component. And so let's see if we can get this to work with that. So before we do any changes to the parent or the child questions, let's just make sure that this functions. If we come back on over to our application, we can see that conditional question here at the very end. And at the end, you can see, would you like to provide additional details? If you say no, that's it. We don't have to do anything else. If we say yes, then here is an additional long text form that I can type in. So we still want that to function exactly like that. So let's go back over to our code. And the first step is I'm going to grab an instance of this question. Grab that code there, and we're going to paste it right above that parent question. And let's start pulling out some of these details. So I know the name is going to be provide details. This is the question. It is going to be required. It's going to have multiple values, yes or no. So let's go ahead and put those in here. And I think that is it. I think that this parent question, we won't have to do anything in addition. So let's just go ahead and we're going to use our X select one from a list, and we're going to feed it this question. And as a first step, I want to make sure I didn't break anything. So I'm going to delete this old markup. Shouldn't need that anymore. Let's save it. Let's come back on over and let's make sure we're still functional. So here is our conditional question. If I say no, nothing happens. If I say yes, I still get my child question showing. If I say no, I'm back to nothing. So that still functions, and I've already removed the parent question. We're going to follow a similar process. I'm going to create one of these. So when I look at this child question, this is really an instance of our long text components. So let's go ahead and get some of this. I know I have an idea of details dash text. It's going to say, please share your details. There isn't one of these allowed options. There is a placeholder. Let's go ahead and get the placeholder in. In fact, did I get the placeholder from the other one? I don't think I need a placeholder here. So let's just go ahead and set this to null. So at this point, if I were to render one of our long text components, it won't quite function yet, but it's going to be close. And the parts that are missing are these data attributes here on the very end. So these data attributes drive our conditional logic. And that conditional logic we can see in our script. So if we go to the bottom here, we have a script on conditional logic, and it's using these data dash conditional parent, and it's using the data dash conditional value from our markup to make this conditional logic work. So we need those. Let's collapse that script and let's just come back in here to our questions. So to make these work, we're going to need a couple of new properties here on our object. I'm going to create a question parent property, and this we're going to set to provide details. Need our equal sign there. And then I'm going to also have a question parent values. So right now this is set to yes, but if you look at the code in the script, it does allow multiple, and they're going to be comma separated. So let's go ahead and put in an array here. Put yes. We'll save this. I'm going to grab this markup here. We're going to copy this. So we're going to come over to our long text implementation, which is right here. And at the very top, I'm going to paste in that markup that we just had, but this is no longer going to be hard-coded. We're going to use question parent. And here we are going to use implode by commas, question parent values. I don't want these all the time. I only want these if that parent property exists. So if maybe it's not null, question parent, and then at the very end, I'll close off that end if. So I've updated this long text component here. Now it's going to have this. It's going to expect two new properties, and I'm going to put these data dash attributes in here. So if I come back to my survey, I'm getting really close. I think I can get rid of this markup now. If I refresh, I think I'm going to have an error, and I am. And this error is happening because my other instance that's calling long text doesn't have those two properties. So let's go ahead and take these two properties, which are parent values and parent itself. Let's come back up to, in fact, they're all going to need this eventually. So let's just go all the way to the top. And this is going to be part of our new data model, but most of them are just going to be null. And this is going to be null also. So at this point, we have to update our data model for all of our questions so that those two are in there. All right, so we've updated all of our question models so that they have those two properties, parent and parent underscore values. Let's come back and see if we're functional now. And so now we're okay here. Let's go to the end. Let's make sure our conditional one works. So if I click yes, I see it. If I click no, I don't see it. So at this point, we have refactored all of our questions. So now we have a conditional question, child and parent, and we've tied these together using these two new properties. So at this point, we've updated our long text component so it supports these child questions. We are going to have to do the same thing for all the rest of the components. I'm going to grab this statement right there, and we're going to go to every single component at the very top. We're going to place this if statement. So we're modifying now all of our templates so that they could support being a child of a parent. We're going to save all those, and then let's close everything out except for that survey. And I do want to make one more functional test now. So I've got the survey here. I should be able to go through and select questions, multiple here. I fill in the email and the URL. I can add stars. We can select a date. I can put my short comment here. I can set the bar. My long comment goes here, and then I have my optional one where I can say yes or no. If I say yes, it's there. If I say no, it's not. If I say yes, I can do my optional comment. and click next, and my summary still functions. Okay, so let's go back into our code base here, and let's come down into our Git repo. Let's see our status. You can see I've modified all of those components. Let's commit their change. This is video 5. We'll push this up. We'll tag this as video underscore 05. And we'll push those tags. All right, so we've made some more progress. We've extracted the data from the components. So now all of these questions now, they no longer have data embedded in them. We're now injecting it in. As a result, our survey has become a bit more messy, and that's what we're going to be working on here soon. So let's go back to our slides and see where we're at here. I've already done the source code updates, so I've already pushed that up. And so that's going to be a wrap for this video. Next video, we're going to take a look at the survey data model. So far, we have a model for a question. And if we take a step back and we think about our data model from a high level on a survey, our survey is going to have multiple sections, and every section was this dark well here. And every section can have multiple questions. So this one has 2 questions. The next one happens to have 3 questions. And we need to refine our higher level data models now. We need a survey model that includes the concept of sections, and then that sections have to have children, which are going to be our questions. So we're going to tackle all of that in the next video. We'll see you soon.